My name is Ray. Welcome back to Ray's Economics Cluebook. Today, we're continuing our lessons on unemployment and continuing to second half of what unemployment exactly is. So last time we talked about different ways to measure unemployment. Well, this time we'll talk about what exactly are the sectors of unemployment that are being measured, or what exactly are the types of raw, pure unemployment. Well, there are really four main types. There is structural, cyclical, frictional, and seasonal, and those all contribute to the overall measure of unemployment. So what is frictional unemployment? Well, frictional unemployment is basically unemployment from people moving in between jobs or quitting a job. Because obviously when you're moving in between jobs, you're going to have a period of time where you are officially or technically unemployed, as you're not working during that period of time. So for instance, in the household data, if we look at unemployed, the reasons people are unemployed, we can see that job leavers, people who go back into the job market or re-entry, and of course new entrants to the job market are all considered frictionally unemployed, and are all make up a significant a minority, but a large significant minority of the unemployment population. Now, the second one, and maybe the more negative one, is structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is basically, think about the labor market as supply and demand. When there is a difference between supply and demand, basically where there are workers trying to supply labor that is not demanded in their region, we basically have a type of structural unemployment. Now, this can take different forms. For instance, let's say there are many medical jobs in the East Coast region, but a worker in the Midwest, where there are not a lot of, for example, not a lot of medical jobs, may be left out of that. May be left out due to the fact that his or her location may not have enough demand for his skills or his or her skill set, although another region may have that demand. So this might necessitate the worker to relocate to another location if he or she has resources to do so. Of course, many times they don't, which of course causes structural unemployment. Another type, of course, when the labor market advances past manual labor and technology advancement. For instance, if jobs are replaced by new technology, for instance, self-checkout lanes are often replacing cashiers, then this creates basically, structurally disadvantages the cashier due to less demand for the labor. Of course, the supply does not change much, and as a result, the cashier gets pushed out and becomes unemployed. Another example, of course, would be office software versus typewriters, because as software advances, the need for typewriters just goes away. It's basically like cashiers. So we see this in the supply and demand model for labor. Basically, one type of the structural employment is surplus unemployment. Basically, where if you have the market wage or the minimum wage per se is higher than the equilibrium wage, then of course you're going to have a surplus of labor. You're going to have more supply than demand, and the surplus of labor is basically structurally unemployed, because it's people supplying it at the current wage rate are not having any demand for labor because there's too few demand. Of course, we mentioned this could be caused by minimum wage, where the minimum wage is higher than the equilibrium wage for the labor market, thus making it effective. We can have labor unions that basically are like restricting, in the long run, can restrict supply of labor, but in this case can also cause a wage to increase in a way that people become unemployed. And lastly, we have efficiency wages and just public policies that cause the wage rate to rise above equilibrium wage, and of course people are obviously going to be left out, because people who supply labor at that new wage might not be in demand. There's too few demand at that high wage. So this all adds up to our natural and actual rate on unemployment. The natural rate of unemployment is basically the frictional plus structural rate. This is called natural because this is always going to exist. This is the lower bound for unemployment no matter what. So basically the lowest rate unemployment can reach here in the US is around 2.9%. You basically can't really reach much lower than that. And this is basically a healthy rate of unemployment for the economy. Now, of course, natural rate and things like that can be affected and changed in the long run. For instance, changes in labor force characteristics. For instance, more experienced labor force is obviously different from a less experienced and more fragile labor force of teenagers per se. Secondly, of course, labor unions, technology, more advanced technology, just labor market institutions and things that, or maybe labor market things that help people look for jobs, like online job searching. That can also affect, say, the frictional and structural unemployment, and it can affect natural rate unemployment. And lastly, government policies, such as job training, which of course can help decrease frictional unemployment, or maybe even structural unemployment, and employment subsidies can also affect the natural rate of unemployment. But of course, natural rate is not always the actual rate. I mean, as we all know, as you all can probably infer, the unemployment rate rarely reaches 2.9%. Basically, because of the business cycles and cyclical unemployment that is caused by business cycles, the actual rate of unemployment is usually higher than natural rate of unemployment. So for our final clues, basically the economy's bottom borderline for unemployment is our natural rate of unemployment, which is frictional unemployment plus structural unemployment, the two most basic types of unemployment. And basically, it can't go lower than that. It's a lower bound, so it can't be eliminated. But of course, since it's a lower bound, 3% of actual unemployment is basically counted as full employment, because all job openings that are in demand are supplied, basically. And so this could be a good contrarian signal. The unemployment and the natural unemployment, it can be a good contrarian signal to see when the business cycle peaks or troughs, and can help you with your investments per se in the economy. So thank you, and see you next time.